call to draw a circle wider is not just a call to expand our circles of belonging, but a challenge to go deeper. Look more deeply at the spaces we occupy and be courageous enough to recognize where we are not as inclusive as we might think or want to be. It's a call to radically include and honor the full humanity of each person that we encounter and open ourselves to the transformations that occur when we step outside our comfort zones. When we speak of inclusion, what do we really mean? If inclusion simply means accepting others into our already formed circles, we might miss the true power of what inclusion can be. As C.B. Beale, a powerful advocate for racial justice, reminds us in our centering thought, if we say inclusion, but we mean we have something perfect exactly as it is, so you should come and join us and fit right in, that's not inclusion, that's colonization. This is a powerful, challenging idea. It makes us stop and question, when we invite others into our community, are we genuinely creating space for them to bring their whole entire selves? Or are we just asking them to fit into what is already created? In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we often talk about beloved community. But what does beloved community really look like? It is not simply a place where everyone is allowed to gather, but a place where everyone is valued for their uniqueness. It is a community where differences are not just tolerated, but celebrated. It is a place where each of us can show up and be absolutely, truly who we are, without having to conform to the standards set by a dominant culture. This is what inclusion truly means. A space that isn't just welcoming, but transformative. I'm so grateful to be in this space with all of you today. As we gather each week, we come from our different experiences, our backgrounds, our struggles, our joys, our sorrows. Each of us brings a unique light into this world. And when we share that light with one another, we create something beautiful. This is the magic of Unitarian Universalism. We come together not to become the same, but to make space for difference. And in so doing, we become something stronger, more vibrant, and a more whole community. In 2017, the UU Commission on Appraisal published a report widening the circle of concern, calling us to look beyond our existing structures and practices to create a truly inclusive community. This report challenges us to rethink what it means to be a circle of concern, a circle of care, a circle of justice, a circle of equity. It calls us for collective effort to identify how we have intentionally created barriers to full participation, especially for marginalized groups. As the report states, widening our circle is not just about making a seat at the table for those who are not yet present. It's about examining the assumptions that have excluded people in the first place. It's about moving beyond the circle as it currently exists and creating space for the full breadth of human existence. Widening the circle requires us to examine how we as a faith community may inadvertently and not intentionally uphold structures of exclusion. This means confronting the ways we may unconsciously behave in our thinking and practices. Last week, I serve on the board for Sophia Snow House, which is a independent living and nursing home in West Roxbury. And I am the chair of the independent living board, and so they call me whenever they have worries and concerns. And in the last 3 years, we've increased the diversity of the staff, and the residents in the independent living home have a lot of complaints about the new staff. And I was on the phone with one of them this week, and she was complaining, and I listened to her complaints, and I said, I hear you that this staff person might have too much on their plate, and they might not be as organized as you think they should be, and that they may have said some things that you felt were insulting. Like, I get that. But I wonder if some of the reaction to this staff person is also because of their skin color. And she said, oh, no, we're very liberal here. We are all educated people. We do not behave in that way. And I said, well, I believe that. I know that to be true. And I did interview all the staff for our CEO's evaluation. And I asked them if they felt like they'd experienced any microaggressions, if they felt like they'd experienced any racism in their job, and they all said yes. But that as relationships were built, some of that went away. So I'm asking you again, do you think maybe some of the new staff who have brown skin are experiencing some pushback, not because they can't do the job, but because they either do it differently than you think they should, or because of the color of their skin? And she said, well, maybe. This is the kind of examination we're going to have to do if we really want to dismantle our ideas of what it means to be an inclusive community. For example, in a world that prizes individualism, our Unitarian Universalist communities often take pride in the idea of the autonomous individual who arrives at the truth on his own. But when we adopt this framework uncritically, we realize that we risk ignoring the reality that many people who've been systematically excluded from having the resources of time or space or education or opportunity cannot engage in such individualistic truths and pursuits. People of lower income with fewer resources may have a more challenging time accessing the time and the tools needed to navigate a society that prizes individual success above all else. So the circle we must draw not only must widen, but it must shift. We ask ourselves, how can we create space for people excluded from the very start? What does it mean to move from a space where the circle exists as something already defined to one we acknowledge that may be constantly evolving and changing? Drawing the circle wider also means acknowledging how our cultural and historical context shapes spaces that we occupy. In Amy Irving's book, Waking Up White, she invites us to reflect on how whiteness functions in society. And she writes, for many white people, the world of whiteness is so normalized that it becomes nearly invisible. it is assumed that everyone should share the same worldview, and those who don't are considered other or outside. Whiteness in this context refers not just to race, but a set of cultural norms, beliefs, and values that have shaped much of what we understand as mainstream in our society. These deeply ingrained and often unconscious assumptions inform our policies, our practices, and attitudes. They impact everything from how we understand justice to how we create space of belonging. In our faith communities, it's crucial that we don't just invite people from different backgrounds, but actively challenge and decenter our whiteness. Understanding that the process of inclusion requires that we reckon with the structures and assumptions that have excluded people in the first place. Once at UU Convocation, a Black theologian was invited to speak. The tradition of the convocation was to have a lecturer lecture for about an hour and then have about 15 minutes of questions. A distinctly Eurocentric model of education. Instead, this lecturer gave a 20-minute lecture and then led the group in activities to explore the concepts she was trying to get them to understand. As one of the organizers, I was privy to the feedback, which read like this. Who said that she could change the format? Did she think we were kindergartners? Who vetted this presenter? Was this what the new leadership thought was intellectual rigor? I knew this presenter well. I championed her and helped bring her aboard. I also knew that she could have presented a 1-hour lecture with 15 minutes of talkback, but that she actively was trying to engage the audience and dismantle Eurocentric ideas with her presentation. Holding tight to one way of doing something as being the right way is a distinctly Eurocentric white way of doing things. So if you have that urge that there's this one right way to do things for yourself, that might not be you. That actually might be how you've been Eurocentricized. When I woke up this morning and realized I didn't have the book, I had that feeling. Like it has to be, oh, I didn't do it perfectly. When I got up here and didn't have my script that I'd marked up so I knew where to look up at the audience, I also felt that, oh no, I messed up. That's not me. I am a much more relaxed, easygoing person when I'm decentered from my whiteness. But I have been enculturated to think things are supposed to be perfect. In many circles, in many more diverse circles, imperfections are considered joyful, wonderful humanness. In Shelley Tolcook's book, Witnessing Whiteness, she emphasizes that this is not merely an intellectual exercise, it requires action. It requires vulnerability. It requires us to face the uncomfortable truth that our systems, educational, economic, and religious, are often built on exclusions that benefit some and harm others. Drawing the circle wider is a radical act of dismantling those systems of belief and rebuilding them in a way that honors the full spectrum of humanity. To begin dissecting the concept of cultural whiteness, it is helpful to recognize its markers. While generalizing white cultural beliefs can oversimplify or stereotype the diverse histories and values of those who are white, it's important to note that non-white heritages of all kinds have been similarly simplified and categorized. Thus, examining white culture in a more simplistic light may still be warranted and give us some idea of who we are and help us dismantle those ideas that we hold without even thinking. So, with that disclaimer, I begin. Common beliefs or values associated with predominantly white Western cultures, such as those in America and Western Europe, include an emphasis on individualism, highlighting personal freedom and independence and self-reliance. It also focuses on mediocrity, where success is attributed to hard work and talent, a focus on time and efficiency, where valuing punctuality and productivity and a prioritization on rationality and logic over emotion and decision making. Additionally, white culture encourages a strong future orientation, planning for long-term goals, a work ethic, emphasizing hard work and professional success, and a nuclear family idea that centers on the immediate family unit. Many white-skinned cultures are shaped by secularization, which is based in Christian traditions. Yet contemporary beliefs often embrace a pluralistic view. Furthermore, there is an aspiration for equality under the law and a strong emphasis on personal responsibility, privacy, consumerism, and capitalism as markers of success. Innovation and progress and the importance placed on self-expression and free speech are also significant. These cultural beliefs are influenced by historical, political, and economic developments, such as colonization, industrialization, and even the Enlightenment, which formed our faith tradition. The overarching values of whiteness have set the bar for most of American culture. However, it's essential to recognize that these values are not universally embraced by all cultures. Dismantling those ideas is not easy. It requires us to reflect on what motivates us and what is our overarching driving force in life. This work asks us to be brave, to speak out when we see injustice, and to listen to voices that have been silenced. It requires us to realize that we will make mistakes and that we can learn from them. Making sense of how our own cultural ideas limit us and how we unconsciously limit our interactions with others is the work of creating a broader, beloved community that is indeed just for all. Reverend Tess Baumberger's poem, "Less Beautiful Without You," reminds us of the profound beauty that emerges when we draw the circle wider. The place would be less beautiful without you. Your heart, honed by hardship, grief, illness, seeking solace and comfort here among us. Each of us, regardless of our religious background, race, gender, or past experiences, brings something valuable to this table. We are not just a collection of individuals who happen to be in the same room. We are part of something greater than ourselves. Our diversity, our personal histories, our spiritual practices, or lack thereof, our ways of seeing the world makes this community more vibrant, more vital, more complete. When we open our hearts to the richness that each of us carries, we become a stronger, more resilient community. We learn from one another's wisdom, share our struggles, find solidarity in our common humanity. Drawing the circle wider is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong practice, a continuous process of transformation. As Gretchen Haley reminds us, in a world that lives on moral outrage, we are here to cultivate moral courage. In a time that prizes picking sides, we gather to draw a wider circle. In a culture that teaches us to get for what we give and to ask what's in it for me, we come to practice generosity and to remember we are all in this together. Moral courage is required as we strive to live in a world where everyone is included and no one is left behind. It is the courage to challenge the status quo, refuse the separation that so often is characterized in this society, and stand in solidarity with those who've been historically excluded. It is the challenge to accept something different that makes you uncomfortable and allow what you think might be a mistake to happen anyway. This work, drawing the circle wider, is not just about making space for others, it's about challenging the very shape of a circle. It transforms how we think about justice, belonging, and community. And as we do this, we create a new vision of the world where people are seen and valued and loved just where they are. Together, we can make the circle wider and build a beloved community that is genuinely exclusive, just, and beautiful. Amen. Oh, did I say exclusive? This is what's wrong with being dyslexic and a minister. Or what's beautiful about being dyslexic and a minister. Yes, I'm glad you were paying attention. I really meant inclusive.